40 hours. That's how long I spent in the universe of GreedFall, The Dying World. And for most of that time, I was consistently intrigued by its world, yet frustrated by almost everything surrounding it. Set 3 years before the original game, this prequel flips the formula, and instead of playing as a colonist arriving on the island of Tier 4D, you are a native islander forcibly dragged to the dying old world continent of Nacon. Spider Studios swung for the fences on this game, overhauling their action combat in favor of a slower tactical system and building out a richer political landscape to explore. Their ambition was undeniably there, but ambition and execution are two very different things, and today I want to help you answer the only question that actually matters: should you buy this game? The premise is fairly solid. Nacon is a 17th century inspired continent rotting from the inside, politically fractured and ravaged by the Malachor plague. And your goal as an islander is to stop the forces that want to dominate your homeland. It feels like 80% of RPGs nowadays are set in medieval fantasy, and the other 19% in sci-fi, which I absolutely love. But whenever that rare 1% comes along with a truly distinct backdrop like this, it does become a little bit more fascinating to me. The world is populated by complex factions: the merchant congregation, the theocratic Teleme, the mercenary coin guard, and my personal favorite, the Nauts, who are essentially pirates with a loose code of ethics. Each of your 7 companions hails from one of these factions and offers a window into their respective culture. The foundation of the world is solid. I enjoyed my 40 hours in it, and if a GreedFall 3 is ever announced, I would be excited to return to this world. The unfortunate part is that interacting with this world doesn't always live up to the setting it's built inside. It's always been my belief that a narrative RPG lives and dies on its decisions both inside and outside of combat, and how the world reacts to them. And this is where the cracks start to show. The game promises meaningful freedom of choice, but the underlying quest design is highly formulaic. The vast majority of missions boil down to finding a conveniently placed note or key sitting in plain sight to unlock the next area. The antagonists are cartoonishly black and white, with no opportunity to sympathize with their perspective or occasionally side with them. The dialogue choices you do make usually only determine whether you fight your way through a situation or talk your way past it. The outcome is almost always the same. When the game does attempt something more complex, it crumbles even further. Early in the prologue, I stumbled upon a stolen book before the quest intended me to find it, which completely shattered a questline. The Fortmaster asked me to help locate this book while it was sitting in my inventory, but I couldn't hand it over. Then, after he personally helped me kill the culprits, he still acted shocked when I told him that they were dead. This kind of disconnect also bleeds into companion behavior as well. Sybil comes from the illustrious De Vespa family within the merchant congregation. Yet during a conversation where her own family name was being dragged through the mud right in front of her, she just stood there completely silent. These moments of broken reactivity can kind of pull you out of the world for a brief moment. That said, it's not all broken reactivity. Bringing companions who are native to a region will occasionally unlock extra dialogue options, which is a nice touch. It's just very inconsistent. Speaking of those companions, the companions themselves are mostly enjoyable. Of the 7, I only actively disliked one, who felt like a last-minute addition with no real purpose. There is also minimal to no party banter, which I personally think is a staple of companion-based games like these to help you grow more attached to these same companions. The standouts for me personally were Ludwig and Sybil, who were both deeply tied to the region's politics and a blast to control inside of combat. Romance is also present, and I personally went with Sybil, but it only really amounts to a handful of scattered dialogue lines that ultimately culminates in a fade to black cutscene. No added questlines, no meaningful extra content. The combat system is the single biggest factor in whether this game is for you. Spiders abandoned the action-oriented combat of the first GreedFall in favor of real-time with pause, explicitly inspired by Dragon Age Origins. As someone who considers Origins one of the best games ever made and still has it in my top 10, I was personally okay with the direction. but it will absolutely be the primary sticking point for anyone on the fence. I absolutely love certain real-time with pause games, such as Origins, Tyranny, and Wrath of the Righteous, to name a few. The problem for me here is within the execution. Most fights just drag hard. Enemies are extremely spongy, and combat often comes down to stacking buffs on yourself, applying debuffs to enemies, and purging debuffs off your party. This was the case for probably about 80% of my playthrough. The ability to control all 3 companions is a really big positive for me, but it does create an odd dynamic. Your companions are almost universally more powerful than your own character. Their skill trees outclass anything available to you, which makes playing many of the weapon types feel like running a nerfed version of someone cooler. The main exception is the tier 3 gauntlets, which only your character can equip, making you the dominant force by default with that weapon. I'll have a dedicated build video for those later this week. If you are just starting it out, I would generally point you towards ranged characters. Seeing the battlefield from a farther view makes pausing and repositioning easier, and the lighter armor gives you faster ability regeneration, so you're actually using more abilities. The progression system is where I personally felt the most let down, and I say that as someone who really cares about build crafting. The skill trees are extremely linear. In any given build, you'll really only invest in 2 of the skill trees, and the game gives you more than enough points to max both out completely. All of the skill trees require you to be using a certain weapon, so you can't dip into another skill tree for a cool ability just to use it with another weapon. This single limitation is probably my biggest gripe with the game. There's absolutely no real decision making in the leveling process. The loot system has the same problem. Finding a legendary item should feel like an awesome moment. Here, they routinely drop underleveled or with stats so uninspired. A 5% chance to inflict burn on basic attack is a real example. You'll frequently equip rare or even uncommon gear over legendaries, simply because gem slots offer far more practical value. Legendaries just don't feel legendary whatsoever. The talent system fares a little bit better. Specializing your character in things like survival or lockpicking works reasonably well, and companions provide bonuses to relevant talents when brought along, which adds a light strategic layer to party composition. If you do pick this game up, my tip is to prioritize diplomacy. It's the talent that most meaningfully changes your playthrough. One fair warning though, the percentages in this game operate on XCOM logic. A 65% success chance means you are going to fail when it matters most.
I can't do it. I can't do it. I can't do it.
I genuinely failed more 65% lockpick attempts than I succeeded. Whether that's a bug or just the gods laughing down at me, I honestly don't know, but it did feel pretty bad. And we can't talk about this game without addressing the elephant in the room. Nacon, the publisher behind GreedFall, has filed for insolvency. What that ultimately means for the franchise is still unclear, but it does raise a real concern. Spiders may not have the funding to patch issues or provide meaningful post-launch support. I do think that that's worth mentioning to factor into your decision. On the technical side of things, I came away mostly fine. I hit a handful of minor visual bugs and 3 crashes across the 40 hours, which is unfortunately just the baseline in this industry nowadays. Running a 5070 Ti, I sat comfortably around 100 frames most of the game, with one notable drop to the low 40s in a late game location for reasons I really couldn't identify. Otherwise, it was a pretty stable experience. Not a positive, nor really a negative. GreedFall: The Dying World is a game of lofty ideas let down by formulaic quest design and underwhelming progression. The pivot to tactical real-time with pause alienated the franchise's original audience without going deep enough to really satisfy players like myself who love the tactical aspects of the genre. The world building is quite engaging and the setting remains one of the most interesting in modern RPGs. but linear skill trees, unrewarding loot, and quest logic that breaks under the lightest pressure is going to make it a tough sell for most people. So should you buy it? Ultimately, if you actively enjoy Real Time with Pause, you'll probably find enough to like here. Games in this style don't come around often. If you don't enjoy Real Time with Pause, just don't buy it. It will burn you out pretty quickly. And if you have never played a Real Time with Pause game before, do yourself a favor and start with Dragon Age Origins first. Or if you want a hidden gem, check out Tyranny. Play one of those, figure out if this style clicks with you, and then come back and make your own call. If this review helped, don't be afraid to like and subscribe for more RPG reviews and builds. And if you played it yourself, drop your thoughts below. Thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.